Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on next steps for the Stone Academy student population. I want to thank all of the participants today for their work and what they have done, and those viewing today, of course. This whole PowerPoint will be available on the OHE website, so that if you have to reference back to this at any point, it will be up on our office's website. On the screen before you, there are a number of links that we should pay attention to for both student transcript requests. If you haven't already done so, that would be the link to participate in, and then applying for refunds as well, and then information about the federal loan discharge. So again, thank you all very much for participating in today's webinar. Today, we're providing you with the information to help you continue along the path to becoming a licensed practical nurse. To do so, OHE has brought together the key players who have worked tirelessly over the past several months to try to provide students with the tools to make an informed decision about their future. Today, you'll hear from representatives from the U.S. Department of Education, Lincoln Technical Institute, Griffin Hospital School of Allied Health Careers, the Department of Public Health, and CliftonLarsonAllen LLP, who conducted the independent review. One of the most important responsibilities of the Office of Higher Ed is to advocate on behalf of students seeking a post-secondary education in Connecticut. My office does this by assuring students that have access to schools that meet the highest standards of academic quality. When Stone closed abruptly in February, it had no approved or clear teach-out plan. Since Stone's abrupt closure, my staff and I have worked to develop a viable teach-out options, provide you with educational transcripts, and determine what portion of your out-of-pocket tuition payments shall be reimbursed. As a result of our efforts, we have formulated a 10-month teach-out option at Griffin Hospital. That plan is still in the final stages of completion. My office will be sending some of you a notice advising you that based on the results of the independent audit, your records, you qualify to participate in the hospital's School of Allied Health Career Practical Nursing Program teach-out option because you are approximately halfway done with the nursing education program. In addition, all students are eligible to apply for a transfer to a Board of Examiners for Nursing Practical Nurse Education Program at Griffin Hospital School of Allied Health Careers Practical Nursing Program, Lincoln Technical Institute, and Porter and Chester, three approved schools here in the state of Connecticut. If you apply to one of those programs, the school representatives will need your Stone transcript, the audit results regarding your time at Stone. If you have not requested your transcript and audit results, you can do so by filling out an application at ct.gov/student transcript, which I believe is provided at the beginning of this webinar. Based on the information you provide to the school, the admissions officers will work with you to determine what credit and hours would be transferable. The information about applying for a federal loan discharge from the U.S. Department of Education or a tuition refund from our office is on this slide and on our website. I know this has been very difficult for a lot of people, and I want to thank you all for participating in this. We hope that we will be able to answer many of your questions today, and we wish you well along your continued path to becoming an LPN. Next slide, Sean. We're going to view the agenda. So included in the agenda, as you can see, our next speaker will be Chris Andresen from the Department of Public Health to talk about qualifications for practical nurse licensure. Chris, let me flip the screen to you.
Okay, thank you, Tim, and good morning, everybody. First, I'd just like to thank the Office of Higher Education for coordinating this event. and including the Department of Public Health. And as Tim said, there's a bunch of us that have been working on this issue related to stone for months now, and working to come up with a plan that best serves the students, the former students, and the residents of Connecticut that will be that these nurses may be serving. And during this time, I've been speaking to a lot of students who have graduated, and many who have passed the NCLEX, and there's been a lot of questions about how are nursing programs approved, and what does it mean if my professor wasn't qualified, and you know, I think any of us, when we're a student, we don't necessarily know what we're not getting or what we're not learning at any point in time when we're studying, because we're new and we rely on our teachers and the schools to, provide us with the information and the skills that we need to learn. And for nursing schools, whether it's an RN program or an LPN program, the requirements and the qualifications for teacher are all based in law, basically. So I thought I would talk a little bit about how schools are approved and what it means for a teacher to be qualified to teach LPN students. So to hopefully maybe clear up some of the understandable confusion related to this, because normally we don't have to think a lot about these statutes and regulations related to schools, but a situation like Stone Academy, which we haven't experienced before, really brings these things to light. So the first thing I wanted to share with you is I'm sure you're all familiar with the term the Nursing Board. The formal name is the Connecticut Board of Examiners for Nursing, and this on the screen here is part of the statutes related to the nursing profession in Connecticut. And one of the roles of the Board of Nursing, per the statutes, per the law, is that they approve schools of nursing in the state that prepare persons for examination. So the first step in becoming an LPN or a registered nurse is to have completed a program approved by the Nursing Board. And if you could go to the next slide, please. And also the requirements for LPN licensure are also in statute. And some of the questions that we've had is, well, if I've passed the test, or if somebody passes the test, why isn't that enough necessarily for them to be licensed? But I think it's important to remember that there's two components to being licensed. One is the successful completion of a program approved by the Board of Examiners of Nursing. And then the second one is passing the NCLEX exam. And one of the most important components of nursing education is that clinical experience that we've all been struggling with and trying to document and to figure out. But the clinical experience is where a student learns the skills necessary to practice nursing, and also to be able to respond to those events that emergency events that may happen when they're practicing nursing, because quite often we see folks who may have made a mistake or didn't know how to respond when something happened, and proper training before actually practicing as a nurse helps avoid those kinds of situations that impact patients and a nurse's license. Next slide, please. Okay, so the program curriculum requirements, and I pulled out just a few excerpts just to keep it simple, but per the regulations of Connecticut, the program must be at least 15 hours long, 1,500 hours long, and be at least for 10 months. And half of those contact hours during that program shall be, which means they must be, in supervised direct client care and observational experiences. So those are really the clinical experiences that are necessary for someone who graduates a program in order to practice as a licensed practical nurse in Connecticut. Next slide, please. And when we've talked about faculty requirements, and I know I've talked to a lot of students that were, confused about the requirements of their teachers or instructors, and wondered what it meant that they weren't qualified. And someone could teach well, or be a great teacher, and you've learned a lot from them, but they may not have met the requirements in law to actually teach in an LPN program. And the main qualifications are that they shall have learned at least a bachelor's degree, earned a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. One of those have to be in nursing, and have nursing education or experience in the teaching areas. And it also allows for nurses who may not have a master's degree yet, but those who do not have a master's degree must have a bachelor's degree and at least 3 years of clinical experience in nursing, and have to complete a master's degree within 4 years of being hired. There's also some provisions too for down the third bullet is for nurses, for faculty members in technical schools, but those programs do not exist right now. But the real key is when a student is being instructed in nursing, it's important to have a properly credentialed and nursing instructor that has appropriate experience to be able to share with students who are learning to provide nursing services to patients, and learning to avoid medication areas, to know what to happen if they walk in and a patient's unconscious. Lots of things can go wrong in lots of the settings where LPNs work, and it's critical that for the nurse themselves and for the patients and families of patients, that they have the proper skill and training from qualified instructors. And it's really meant to protect the public and to protect nurses in their profession. Next slide, please. Okay, so that's just a brief overview to give you a little bit of insight into how the nursing programs are structured and what's required of them. And I just wanted to make sure that people knew that, it's not like we're just making this stuff up as we go along. This stuff is codified in law, and it's intended to make sure that LPN or RN students, wherever they go to a school in Connecticut, are getting the same basic degree of education that they deserve, and that the patients that they'll be serving deserve. So I look forward to hearing the rest of the presentations and answering questions later for folks. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Now we'd like to turn the next part of the program over to Jennifer Euler from the U.S. Department of Education. Jennifer?
Good morning. Thank you guys so much for inviting me to come today. And I just have a few brief comments I'd like to make. Again, I just want to say thank you to all of the other partners. This is definitely a group effort, and whatever we can do to help the students, we're willing to help as well. Again, just some basic information on the slide. My contact information is at the bottom, so please, after my presentation, anytime, please feel free to reach out, give us a call, or shoot us an email. So here at the U.S. Department of Education, I work in the Office of Federal Student Aid, and part of our mission is to administer the Title IV aid programs to schools and students. And this includes, but is not limited to, the federal Pell Grant program and the direct loan programs. So unfortunately, when a school closes and students aren't able to complete their program due to the closure, such as the instance with Stone, we have a couple of options for students. So like I said, I'll kind of go briefly over the options. There's some links in the slideshow that you can follow for more detailed information. And you can always, like I said, reach out for very specific questions about your situation. The first option we have are closed school loan discharges. And these are for all students who are enrolled at Stone or a closed school, or who are on an approved leave of absence from the school within 180 days of the closure. And you can apply for a closed school loan discharge at any time. This is not anything that has to be done the date of the closure, 2 days after the closure, 6 months. It's open at any time. Since Stone closed on February 15th, 2023, this applies to students who are enrolled or on an approved leave of absence from approximately August 18th of 2022 to the date of the closure, which is February 15th, 2023. And what I mean by a discharge is that the department will remove any obligation from the student to repay the loan. Like I said, the link that's on the slide, if you go there, you can complete an application. The application will then get sent to your loan servicer, and the loan servicer will review it and approve the application if warranted. And then sometimes the loan servicers have additional questions. So if they do have additional questions, they may require some documents. Please feel free. Usually it's the school that provides them, but I believe in this case, the Office of Higher Education also may have some of those documents. If you have a question about what those documents are and what they're looking for, again, my contact information is at the bottom, and feel free to reach out and I can try to answer those questions for you and try to help the process run smoothly with the loan servicer. Once the loan servicer has approved the application and it's processed, you will no longer have to make payments on your loans. To check the status of the discharge, you can log into your FSA ID account at any time to check the status of the discharge, as well as any other loan any statuses that you're looking into. And then the second option that we have for students right now is to file a borrower defense to repayment claim. And this actually applies to all students who attended Stone, regardless of their enrollment status at the time of the closure. And same thing, like if this discharge is approved, then the loans will be discharged and you will no longer be required to make payments on your loans as well. This is slightly different from closed school loan discharge, as in the borrower defense claim to repayment is legal grounds for discharging your loans because you believe that Stone engaged in certain misconduct related to the making of a federal loan or the educational services that it provided to you as a student, which caused you harm. Parents can also apply for these if they have PLUS loans. Most often, students apply for this type of loan relief because they believe that their school has misled them in some aspect regarding to their program. The application process is a little bit more involved than the closed school loan discharge process. You'll still have to answer some questions. You'll have to provide a description of the misrepresentation that was made by the school, and then you'll have to also provide any supporting documentations for that claim. There are 6 different grounds for borrower defense to repayment claims. I'm not going to go into the specifics of them. I'll give you the kind of general categories, and then I recommend following the link in the slideshow, and you can go into specifics to see if your situation, if it matches what the category is. And so the 6 categories are substantial misrepresentation, substantial omission of fact, breach of conduct, aggressive and deceptive recruitment, judgment, and prior secretarial action. And again, this probably doesn't mean much to you right now, and they're kind of broad categories, but if you follow the link, you can go in and find out more about each of these categories. And again, please use me as a resource. Use the information, the contact information in the slide, and I'm happy to try to help. Right now, these are the 2 main options that we have for students. If you have any questions, I know this is a difficult time and you guys are processing a lot of different information, and again, thankful for the partners for providing information and connecting everyone together to hopefully help everyone out in this situation. So if you have any questions or need any information, please feel free to reach out to me. And thank you so much for your time. I appreciate being included.
Thank you, Jen. That was extremely informative. Next up, we have from the Office of Higher Education, Sean Seaprasad. Sean?
Thank you, Tim. I just wanted to spend a little time talking about how to apply for a tuition refund at the Office of Higher Education. First, I wanted to just clarify, refunds are applicable to tuition payments by means other than a federal financial aid. The refunds are applicable to tuition payments that are made for courses or unit of instructions that was not completed at your time at Stone Academy, and refunds are applicable to tuition payments for instruction received between November 1 of 2021 and February 28, 2023, which was not in compliance with applicable state statutes and regulations. You must make an application for a refund no later than 2 years after the date that Stone closed. And I have a link to apply for a refund. Again, this PowerPoint will be available on our website, and so you can access the PowerPoint to get the link if you have not already applied for a refund. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. And now we'll have Jeffrey Ziplow from CLA to speak specifically to the audit review. The office felt compelled, because of the volume of students, the complexity of this issue, that we reached out to an independent review team and to help us walk through each of these varying topics so that we would have your efforts both for transcript activity and loan reimbursement. Jeff, up to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim and Sean. I do appreciate the opportunity to provide a brief overview of the independent review that was performed. So the independent review was conducted of Stone Academy's active student records on behalf of Connecticut Office of Higher Ed. As part of this effort, as part of this review, we determined the percentage of contact hours each student completed for the practical nursing program, identified the contact hours that have not been completed, along with other related student information. At the completion of our review, we put together a summary information per student that included the campus locations, program type, dates of enrollment agreement, original anticipated graduation dates, and the list goes on. There's quite a bit of information that was provided. On the next slide, I wanted to provide a quick overview of what the assessment process was. And so our assessment process included the following key steps. We reviewed the student files, and what I mean by that is we organized the information that we received from Stone into appropriate campus locations and cohorts. Sorry about that. This resulted in the development of a master student list, which we provided to Office of Higher Ed. We reviewed the attendance files and the instructors, identified the instructors and their associated qualification status, determined the validity of clinical sessions and classroom courses, as well as identified the clinical site locations. And then the last step was we reviewed and documented the financial ledgers and student transcripts, ultimately helping to formulate and calculate the student refunds. On the next slide, I did want to share with everyone that for those students that requested their student audit report, you should have received a package, a document that contained a number of different sections, and I just wanted to share with you what those sections look like. The first one, as identified below, is a summary table. It provided summary information for each student: tuition charged, total financial aid money used. The list goes on: qualifying clinical hours, unqualifying clinical hours, and so that should be part of your package. The next section on the next slide summarizes the financial transactions. And this information was entered directly from the Stone Academy student financial ledger that we received from Stone. And as you can see, it's just literally list of transaction dates and various types of transactions that were identified from information provided to Stone. So that's the financial ledger. On the next slide, we provided clinical information. And so there's actually two sections to this: the clinical summary as well as the individual clinical classes. And we provided this type of detailed information to OHE, and that's part of the overall report. On the next slide, we have the transcript information. This identifies the courses documented by Stone and that were reviewed during the independent review. So you have that transcript session. And then the last section was really terms and definitions. So on the next slide, you'll see a list of terms and definitions that help to identify some of the terminology in these in the various sections to help confirm, what the meanings of those fields are. So with that, Tim, I'm going to turn it back to you.
Tim, you're on mute.
Pat, I'd like to turn it over to you. I apologize for that. If you could speak to the importance of these clinical experiences. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. I am Patty DeLucia. I'm the Corporate Dean of Nursing for Lincoln Technical Institute. I've been a nurse for 35 years, just about, and I've been involved in nursing education for 20. I may have met some of the students at the student fair, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to explain a little bit about how nursing education programs are developed, what the components are, and how they work together to complete the educational pathway. So there's generally three areas. You have your theory, you have your lab, and you have your clinical. What is required for optimal learning is the integration of each one of those sections. They incorporate all learning styles of students. So to start, the theory, that's where you learn the symptoms, the medications, the interventions, the data collection, all possible side effects and presentations of a patient experience, any kind of health deviation. The lab section is where it's task oriented. It's where you learn to perform the task. So you go into the lab and you may learn how to take a blood pressure properly. You may learn G-tube feeding. You may learn different tasks that can be associated with the care of an individual that's presenting a certain disease process. And where that all comes together is in the clinical experience. And just looking back at the regs, I think that's why the regs are developed, so that 50% of the program hours are spent in clinical, because you take the theory pieces and you take the lab pieces, you put them together, you go into a clinical environment, and that's where you apply what you've learned in all areas. If it was just one or the other, like the lab is a controlled environment. It's a perfect environment because you can control the outcomes. Why clinical is important is it integrates what's learned in both theory and lab, and a patient is going to respond and direct their care based on many individual things. So the clinical environment is uncontrolled and it's unexpected. And, anyone that's been a nurse long enough that has patient care experience can tell you that in your clinical practice is where you learn what really happens. It's very spontaneous. You could walk in and you could think that a person, had this treatment or this medication and that they would be better, but something else is throwing it off and they're having a different response. To be able to have that kind of experience with the person, the smaller groups, the 1 to 10, in an environment with an instructor, allows for that learning in as controlled of an environment as you could get in a clinical setting. So that's why the groups are smaller, and the learning happens. So I do think that in the clinical environment, I'm sure you've all heard the word critical thinking. And in the clinical environment is really where you maximize on critical thinking, and your instructor may ask you questions and make sure that, you're encompassing all of it. So we know that nursing isn't task oriented at all. The critical thinking is needed at the bedside to keep your patients safe, for the nurse to know what your anticipated next steps are. So we call that learn one, see one, do one. In theory, you're learning one. In lab, you're seeing one, you're practicing one. Someone's demonstrating for you the way that something needs to be performed. And in do one is where you're really applying what you've learned and taking into consideration all the unexpected things that could happen. Also, a benefit of the clinical environment is that it helps you build memory. It even on an exam or when you're in class and you're learning something, if you could say, oh, that's right, Mr. Jones did that, and you can remember a person, it makes your association with a person easier to remember than it is just reading. We all know how many words are in the books. It also gives you time to really experience being part of the healthcare team. Nursing is not a standalone. It is very collaborative with the entire healthcare team, who, how to call a physician, when to call a physician, how you work the best with physical therapy and social work, and the CNAs and the entire healthcare team. The only way to really learn that is to be actually in the patient care area. It will naturally lead you, the more clinical hours that you have, the more it will lead you into proper time management and priority setting. When you're entering a lab environment or doing a case study, you pretty much know step by step by step. But when something unexpected comes in, how to reorganize your activities to still be able to get done, set your priorities and manage your time, that's a benefit to the clinical environment as well. Also, for communication skills, we can all practice the principles of therapeutic communication, again, in a controlled environment, but learning the unexpected responses and mood shifts and how to relate to somebody that's gotten bad news or good news really can only happen in the clinical environment. So I hope that's helpful, just trying to understand how nursing education programs are structured, and the different components that are required of us by regulation. And I think I'm all set with that slide.
Thanks, Pat.
Sure.
I appreciate that thoughtful understanding of the importance of those clinical experiences. I'd like you now to just talk a little bit about how, Lincoln Tech, and we have 3 qualified LPN programs in the state of Connecticut, but if you could just sort of walk through how Lincoln Tech does the intake on, your intake process.
Sure. So Lincoln Technical Institute has 2 locations for practical nursing in Connecticut. One is in New Britain, one is in Shelton. There is a day program that's 12 months long, and there's an evening part-time program that is 23 months long. We are right now, as a way to come into Lincoln Tech, there would be 2 ways. One would be looking at transfer credit for things, you know, classes and things that are credited on your transcript. So to do that, to have a transfer credit, we would take your transcript, we would evaluate it, we would compare it to Lincoln's curriculum. They're not the same, but by regulation, again, we are required to have components in the curriculum so that your education is comprehensive. So we would look and see how they compared to our curriculum. We would, if you were going to be transferring any clinical experiences, we would just do a skills lab competency, which is essentially bringing you into one of our labs, giving you a situation and having an instructor, you know, assess how you're doing and performing some of the tasks that are related to the practical nursing role. There may be, if you're looking to transfer, especially any nursing courses, Lincoln Tech uses ATI, and there we could utilize a competency exam just to make sure that we're placing you in the right place for your learning in our program. Our admission requirements include a background check, drug screening, and if you've completed a fundamentals course and that's being evaluated for transfer, you will not take the admission test, which is the ATITs, but in all other situations you would. And our clinical requirements are physical documents. That includes titers, it includes PPDs, it includes a real good health screening of contagious disease so that we could protect both you and the patients in the healthcare environment. CPR, we do, because we have a variety of clinical experiences, we do require that the certification is in the adult, the infant, and the child. We are still following our clinical partners' request to have our students COVID vaccinated in order to gain entry into the clinical site. And a yearly flu vaccine is also mandatory. If it is more of your wish or your situation would demonstrate that maybe starting over the process would be in your best interest, you would be processed as a new student. You would have to take the TEAS exam that I mentioned. And as far as the admission requirements and the clinical requirements, they would be the same as I have listed in the 4th and 5th bullet under transfer credit. My contact information is, my email is on the bottom of this slide. And if you wanted to email me, I could answer more specific questions. And I think that's all I have.
Thanks, Patty. I appreciate it. I believe
You're
next
welcome.
up is Sean Seepersad, which will try to explain the next steps in our moving forward teach out program. Sean?
Thank you, Tim. Just wanted to provide a little bit of an overview of what the teach out procedure will be. And then we will turn it over to Griffin to talk more about their specific teach out program. So students who are approximately halfway done with their practical nurse education program, I apologize. Seems to be some technical issues here. Yeah. Sorry. 1 second. Okay, looks like we're good. Yeah, students who are approximately halfway done with their practical nursing education program would potentially qualify for a teach out. OHE will identify and send a letter to students who qualify for the teach out. In that letter, we will outline who to apply, how to apply to Griffin Hospital School of Allied Health Careers for the teach out. And the letter will also let you know what financial assistance will be available from the student protection account at the Office of Higher Education. Students who apply to Griffin would need to meet their admissions criteria, and that will be outlined shortly. Also, students who successfully complete the program will receive a certificate of completion from the Office of Higher Education. And those students who receive the certificate of completion can then proceed to apply to the Department of Public Health and take their NCLEX exam.
Thank you, Sean. Now let me turn this over to Amanda Bell from Griffin Hospital. Amanda? You're on mute.
Thank you, Sean and Tim. Thank you to the esteemed leaders from the academic agencies that are on here today. My colleague Patty and your team of nurses, and to the students. And also to, our students, especially our future nursing workforce. Really,
Amanda, sorry, 1 second. I'm having some technical issues here. Let me try and share this on another screen. 1 second. I apologize. One second. I will be there shortly.
Sean, I can continue to talk. I just have a couple of minutes before the slides come up.
Sure, you can keep
Just so I
going.
know, because I know you're on a tight schedule. So again,
Sure.
I just want to thank you for providing Griffin School of Allied Health Careers an opportunity for us to be a top school choice. We can't even begin to understand what these past 5 months have been for you. Knowing the level of injustice you have experienced at Stone Academy, we have created a solution to ensure that you receive exceptional educational training in a short duration of time and at a discounted rate. Before I go into the slides, I just want to take a few moments to provide some school highlights. Griffin has standardized test pass rates. They're all within the 99% percentile. We have an extremely high job placement. We have an unmatched clinical experience in Newsweek World's Best Hospital. We were recognized. This week, we're Lawn Institute named Griffin the most socially responsible hospital in Connecticut for the second year in a row. We're very proud of that. Patient-centered care training and the inclusion of a Plaintree Fellowship. And our classes are led by nationally certified and master's prepared nurses. The School of Allied Health Careers provides exceptional healthcare education with knowledgeable and experienced teachers who are nationally certified or master prepared nurses. Our students will get ample hands-on real-world training right here at Griffin Hospital, our extended care facility and physician offices. We are accredited by the Connecticut Department of Higher Ed and approved by the State of Connecticut Department of Health. The school offers one-on-one teaching that has helped its graduate achieve a high rate of success on certified tests, and we do boast a strong job placement. And again, just thank you for entrusting us with your educational needs. We are grateful and we are committed to your success. We have a dedicated team that are waiting for you. We anticipate the success in studies, and we will celebrate your future passing of the PN NCLEX on first attempt. So with that, I'll go right into the slides. So we have a path to success. Next slide. And we've just left it very basic because we know that this has been a very confusing time. There's been a lot of information. So Again, a lot of information and kind of condensed into, key action steps. So if you look at number 1, we have heard from Jeff Ziplow about what that process looked like with the audit. So we will be receiving students with a certified audit. Sometimes you'll hear teach out and transfer students kind of interchangeably. So we just wrote it on a slide like that, so you understand that the teach out and transfer are kind of one and the same when it applies to Griffin Health School of Allied Health Careers. The student will complete the Griffin admissions process as Patty described. There are a lot of kind of, standard documents that are universal. We will be including what, Patty had mentioned, and then we have, a few other things that are specific and unique to our school. And then number 3, we will conduct an in-person interview with the students. Next slide, please. So again, we left it, very, very simple to understand. These are really key steps to enter into the transfer pathway. Each student will be, upon completion of their admission paperwork, the interview, we will administer a HESI exam. This is a validated exam that's used by the Board of Nursing. It is a good predictor that you will pass your NCLEX at the end of your studies. So each student will be administered a HESI exam that will be proctored at the hospital. Each student will be achieving an 850 or above on that HESI exam. We do recognize that some of the students will not be able to achieve the 850 on the exam. We do have a plan for those students. Those students will retake that HESI exam after a 2-week rigorous remediation on the content that they're weak on. In addition, as Patty had alluded, the synthesis of the information that students are really required to know at the end of their schooling, it also is predicated on their skills. So we do have a skills competency that we will be also providing students in addition to the HESI exam. You can see the scores that are going to be reflective of success in that kind of pathway. And then students will enter transfer pathway upon success of that first HESI exam test. We can go to the next slide. Students will, so if you can see the title, Process for Second HESI Attempt, again, we do recognize that, learners are kind of across the spectrum. Not all learners will pass on the first exam, and that's okay. You will be successful. And so those students who do not pass on that first exam, will be offered a second HESI exam. That is going to be, again, after a one-on-one 2-week rigorous remediation on the areas and concentrations of nursing that they scored low and didn't meet that benchmark. And really, it's really to promote, that knowledge and to assure that they'll be successful entering the program. That second HESI exam will be administered 2 weeks after the first exam. And then if those requirements are met, students will enter the transfer pathway at that time. Next. So, we've received a lot of phone calls from students. These are probably what you see, these 5 squares are the most frequently asked questions that we're receiving at the school. The cost of the 10-month program is $15,000. The requirements are approximately 989 hours, which is the equivalent of 40 credits, and that is bifurcated into didactic and clinical and skills. The duration of the program is 10 months, and that's 10 months not from when you start your HESI exam, but 10 months when you enter the program. There is a fee, and that actually covers the HESI exam. It's really not an admission fee, but you can see there that it's it's, you know, it's labeled as a admission fee, but that covers the HESI exam. And then there's a start date. There's two options. So for those who pass the HESI exam on first attempt, we know that that's going to be a very anxious and excited group. So we want to make sure that we're responsive to them and they'll be able to start into the transfer pathway immediately. And then we have a second start date, and that will be for those students who require that extra 2 weeks of remediation, and they will start shortly thereafter their first counterparts. Next slide. And that's all I would like to share with you. If there's any questions, I should have had it on the slide, but you can contact me at abell@griffinhealth.org. We also have a lot of information on our website. If you go into griffinhealth.org/school, you can find and locate our school information. And on that website, you'll see there is an application also too. So which is will be convenient for you if you want to get started. So thank you, Tim and Sean, for having me.
Thank you, Amanda. I really appreciate it. And next up, we have a number of frequently asked questions that we hope will answer many of the concerns of the students. I'd like to have Sean C. Prasad walk through that. And then at the conclusion, I believe we have an identifier that will help continue the pathway forward. We are going to, I see many hands raised. However, we're going to take all of those questions written in an email form and not answer those individual questions this morning. So Sean, if you'd like to continue with the frequently asked questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. So here are some questions that we received during the sign up of the webinar, and we just wanted to provide some answers today. So I'll just read them through. First question is, can I submit documentation for OHE's consideration that may increase my refund? The answer is yes. As part of the refund application, students will be able to submit additional documentation that may increase the possible refund. Question, can I submit documentation for OHE's consideration to reinstate some of my lost credits or hours? The answer is no. Hours were determined based on an independent review of materials and school records provided to OHE by Stone Academy. OHE will not accept additional supplementation. Next question. What should I do if I have not received a transcript or audit results? Answer, if you have not received a transcript or an audit results, you can do so by requesting one. If you have requested a transcript and audit results but did not receive them, you can submit a follow-up at that link, and I will come back to that link as well later. Question, what should I do if Stone Academy did not provide our office with your record? OHE is still processing paper records provided by Stone Academy. Once that's completed, OHE will confirm whether we have a record from Stone Academy for you. Question, are Stone Academy credits transferable to another school? The answer is yes. Once you've applied to another practical nursing program, that school's representatives will determine which of your credits will transfer. Please be prepared to provide your Stone Academy transcript and audit results. Next question. Does the item student qualifies for teach out on the summary table of the audit indicate if I am qualified for a teach out? The answer is no. Ignore that item in the summary table. Question, is there a time frame by which I must decide whether I will transfer to another practical nursing education program? The answer is no. There are currently no timeframes by which you must seek to transfer. There may be time restrictions for the teach out. Question, if I finished the program and was waiting to take the exit exam, what do I do? Answer, the program is not considered completed until you have passed the exit exam. If you did not pass the exit exam prior to closure, you did not finish the program. Your audit table reflects what percentage of the program you completed based on the independent review. Question: if I accept a refund for out-of-pocket tuition, will I still be able to transfer my credits? Answer is yes. Question: are there timeframes for students to decide if they are going to request a refund for out-of-pocket tuition payments? The answer is, per statute, students have 2 years from the date of closure to seek a refund for out-of-pocket tuition payments. Question: will the teach out have different schedules to take into account students' work schedules, childcare, etc.? The answer is yes. Finally, some of you do have some questions that you would like answered. As Executive Director Larson mentioned, we will take those questions in writing. We've set up a form for you online for you to be able to write your questions down, and we will respond to you in writing to those questions, those follow-up questions you may have that did not get answered today that you would like an answer to. So please utilize this form to put any follow-up questions you may have for us. And that is all I have. Tim,
Thank you, Sean.
Hmm?
Thank you all. Thank you all so much for participating today. I want to thank our panel again. I believe that this demonstrates the amount of effort and time and concern that state of Connecticut has put into trying to put as much information out to students so that you can make an adult and informed decision on your future career. There's no question that the state of Connecticut needs you in this profession, and we want to do our level best to keep you moving forward. I can't begin to imagine how difficult it has been for many of you to balance your career and your livelihoods. And so with that, to the extent that we will continue to stay in touch with students, please put these questions to us in writing, and we will respond as promptly as we possibly can. Again, I want to thank you all for participating in this exercise today, and this will conclude the webinar of Next Steps. Thank you again, and have a great day.